name's Rachel Ward. I go to UNCW. I'm a freshman studying nursing. My question would be, how do you be bold in your faith while still respecting the legalities of being a professor and honoring different people's worldviews?
Well, welcome everybody to Meet the Prof. I am Shane Hartley, and I'm here with Spence Hackney. How you doing, Spence?
Hello. Good morning.
Yeah, good to see you. So this is a podcast where we interview Christian professors, and we use questions we get from college students, and our hope is to encourage Christ-centered conversations on the college campus. And we have the privilege of getting to meet Sara Myers this morning. So Sara is both the Associate Vice Chancellor of Research and Creative Activity and also a Professor of Biomechanics at the University of Nebraska, Omaha. So Sara, great to see you. Welcome to Meet the Prof.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So the very first question I'd like to ask is something from meettheprof.com. So what is the difference between old lady volleyball and young lady volleyball?
Well, mostly speed of the game, I would say, but also instead of practicing after school, we play early in the morning before everyone goes to work. So yeah, it's something we started doing in our local town. I live in a small town between Lincoln and Omaha, and a lot of us enjoy playing sports and played sports in college. And we started playing Thursday mornings during the volleyball season when the nets were up, and just good exercise and laughs and fun.
Oh, that's great. So do you have any injuries you've incurred during this volleyball stint?
Fortunately, no
Great.
No injuries.
Great. So I'm still trying to play tennis, and I played tennis with my buddy Reese a couple years ago and tore my Achilles, and that was a wake-up call that, I need to start playing old man tennis, not young man tennis.
Yeah. Achilles injuries have been going around, so even professionally lately, you got to be careful.
Yeah,
I think
it's really true.
I think adult sport leagues keep orthopedics in business pretty much. That's their best target audience right there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So we like to establish the fact that professors are human too. So could you tell us about an embarrassing moment that you had, either while you were teaching or as a student?
Yeah. Well, I would say while teaching, the most embarrassing is definitely forgetting a student's name that I know, just because I always have a lot on my mind and see a lot of students. I taught really large classes, anatomy and physiology, when I was teaching. And so not being able to think of a student's name is probably the most embarrassing.
I'm still impressed you can remember all their names in those big classes.
Well,
That's tough.
it just depends on how active they are in the class usually. But
Yeah. Do you have a method that you use to remember all their names now? Did this like spur a drive to?
no, not really. I mean, taking roll is helpful, and if they come to class, that's always helpful. Some professors would take pictures and then put people's name by them so they could kind of learn them, or have students sit in a certain spot. That helps.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the book, The Memory Book? I think Harry Lorraine.
No.
Years ago. So he co-authors it with someone. I did not apply the book well because I can't remember the co-author's name, but I remember that he had memory devices, where you try to picture what their name brings to mind for you. Then you find something on their face that sort of stands out and you associate the two. So I've been working on that for 20 years and I haven't got it mastered yet.
I don't know what it says about his method if you can't remember his name, though. I'm just saying.
Exactly. Something's wrong with this method, not me.
Yeah.
Well, Sara, I really appreciate your transparency on meettheprof.com. And I was wondering, will you tell us more about how God really turned your life around, especially during the separation time with your husband?
Yeah. So it's interesting that you asked me about that, and thinking about it, it seems like so long ago. I think we were probably married about 7 years at this time, and I was finishing my doctoral degree. We had 2 young children, probably under 5, at home, and I think God used problems in my marriage to help me reprioritize my life. Prior to our separation, I had grown up in the church as a Christian. I don't really remember a time that I didn't know Jesus being young, but I would say that it wasn't until this time that I really um, depended on Jesus and made that a personal relationship and a priority in my life. And basically, there were several different issues that I had. I mean, one was just when you're getting your doctoral degree or any graduate study, spending a lot of time working and studying. It was one issue. And so not prioritizing my husband and our children in terms of how I used my time. But then also, academia makes it easy to prioritize focusing on your career and also focusing on your accomplishments and self-promotion and making these things about you. And really, as a woman as well, hearing that, well, your spouse should be doing 50% of all of this, and really not biblical principles were being applied in my marriage, in my life. And so there's a couple of situations during that time that were kind of pivotal. One was a time I was on the phone with my mom, and I hadn't slept well for a long time. And I was just talking with her and upset, and she prayed for me and prayed a Bible verse in First Peter. I can't remember which one it was, but it just gave me a sense of peace. And I realized that really the only way I could live my life is completely relying on Jesus, because kind of in the midst of all of these attitudes or beliefs that I was having as I was finishing my graduate studies, I was also expecting my husband to be everything and be perfect when God is really the only one who can fill that role for us. And so it was a lot of unrealistic expectations that I was putting on him, as well as not making him a priority. And so after that, or during that time, is when I really started a habit of getting up early. I'm a morning person. Some people spend time with God late, but I got up early and would read the Bible or do devotions and pray, something that I still do to this day. So that was about 15 years ago. And it made a really big difference in my relationship with God, and just learning to completely trust and surrender. And of course, that's a process, right? But I think it's really important for those of us in academia, because there's so much uncertainty and you're constantly being judged about your publications and your grants. And if we make that our identity, it's going to be really disappointing. And that's really where I was. And so that separation really helped me to focus on what God wants for my life and his priorities. And the interesting thing is, when I started prioritizing my marriage and my family, I started having more success professionally as well. So somehow God can make it so that our time is more efficient, or we're more productive when we really seek his will and try to follow his ways. He works out the path that he has planned for us already. And so that's been pretty amazing to watch from that point, and and further on in my life as well.
Yeah. How do you know when you've made your career your identity versus just good stewardship?
Yeah. Well, I think it's more of an attitude than anything. And I don't have a perfect answer to that. I pray constantly for God to show me his will. And I often will say things like, you know me, God, and I have to be really certain to know what you want me to do. But I think when we make our career our identity, there's going to be problems and signs that arise from that. Things like not being able to recover from disappointment. That's a big one for me. It's easy for me to get discouraged, but when things don't go the way I want in my career, um, and I can get discouraged, or I can, ask God, I don't know what you're doing, but help walk me through where you have me going next. So I think it's, are we focusing on what we can do within our own power? Are we focusing on how God is trying to use different aspects of our career to work for him?
That's helpful. Well, so as you began a new walk with the Lord through all of that, when was the time that he called you to take a step of faith?
I think just learning to surrender different situations. Like, well, I mean, one would be as we were trying to kind of rebuild our relationship, there's often times when you have something like a separation, sometimes one person wants to work on the marriage and sometimes one person doesn't. And I think that was probably true really early on, and just trying to demonstrate how I had changed and wanting to prioritize my marriage, but also respecting, how my husband was feeling, was really important. And so I would say that was one aspect of surrender that was really clear, and then just trusting that God was going to take care of it, and also take care of me, because I had been relying on my husband to make sure I wasn't lonely or whatever. And instead, realizing that God is with me everywhere I go and being satisfied with that. I still don't like being home alone all the time, but I'm okay now. So that's, I guess, one example, not related to my marriage, but another huge area that God really requires me daily to take steps of faith are just in parenting. So we have 5 kids from 21 to 8. And, you think that when they're little is the really hard time of parenting, but you realize as they go into adolescence and young adulthood, you have to surrender their decisions to God and just trust him. You helped me raise them as well as we could, and now they're going to make their own choices and they're going to make mistakes, and I have to just trust that you're going to be with them and bring them through those mistakes, and it isn't always going to be pretty. So that's another area that he's working on me all the time.
You're speaking to Spence and me, and you're speaking to the parents who are listeners now. If I could drill down a little bit more on that, what have you learned about discerning? Like, how do we discern when our child needs us to back off, or when they may still need us to help in some way?
Yeah. Well, as our kids have gotten to be teenagers, I think we move from more of, this is what you're going to do because I'm telling you to do it, and that's what we think is best for you, to a conversation or even a negotiation with them. This is what we think is best. What do you think about that, and why? And just being honest. I mean, with one of our children, just in full transparency, there's choices that are being made that we don't agree with, and just saying, we don't think this is a good choice. This is why we don't think that. We know what's going on. You don't have to hide it from us. We'll be here when you need help, and just being open and honest about it, even though you can't force them to make a different choice.
Yeah. I love the fact that you maintain communication even when you disagree with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's imperative.
I do. Yes. And it certainly, it's not easy. And, that's another common prayer that I have is, help me, God, not to just do the easy thing. Are we letting our children make mistakes and learn from them, or are we being lazy or just doing the easy thing or avoiding conflict? What's that balance? And, that's something I constantly seek, is discernment with those types of choices.
I imagine we're going to need to do another interview that's talking about the tension of having a career and raising a family, because with 5 kids and your youngest one being 8, you are still needed quite a bit at home.
Yeah. Happy to talk about that more whenever you want.
Great.
That's a whole nother podcast right there. Parenting a massive amount of children. I could do that with it.
Well, I hope you found that useful. I am so encouraged by these professors, and please don't forget, you can get to know all these professors better by going to meettheprof.com. You can search for them by name or school or even just state. So we're so glad that you joined us. Thank you. If you are a Christian professor, would you consider giving us your testimony online that we can share with students? You just go to meettheprof.com and click on Create a Profile, and it's pretty easy to do there. If you're a college student, would you consider sending us a question for these professors? You can do that best by finding us on Instagram at Meet the Prof Official, and then just send us a question by DM and just tell us your name and your school and whatever your question is there. And lastly, if you're interested in supporting our ministry, thank you very much. And you can do so online at give.cru.org/0424344. So until next time, we hope this encourages you to have a Christ-centered conversation on your college campus.